Good evening. Welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Directors. It is May 10th, and we will look at a resolution to pass our budget, to approve our budget, let me say that, budget adoption, and we have a couple of other resolutions. And so I'm going to, let's do this first. If we could, Commissioners, we have a couple of other resolutions besides the budget adoption, and I'm going to ask
President Elliott?
if we look at.
President Elliott? I know that there is a final statement presentation from the superintendent, and the other resolutions are related to the budget as well. It's just the superintendent was planning to do a withdrawal and replacement, so that's why there's three.
Okay, all right. So I'll turn it over to you, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, President Elliott. Good evening, Vice President LeBron, to all of our commissioners, to our staff, and those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook. Good evening. And Dr. Nelms and Dr. Jallo. It's good to see everyone. I just have a brief presentation, as we conduct one every year prior to the final vote. And if, Tom, you can put that up, I'll get started.
She's putting it up. I'm putting it up. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll start just with, again, with highlights. The 22-23 budget reflects a commitment to ensuring that we deliver high-quality instruction, social, emotional wellness and health, as well as additional supports to students with disabilities and our students who are English language learners. The all-budget funds are $983,599,049. The reliance on the general fund appropriate balance, we stayed with the $10 million, and then reliance on the school food service appropriated fund balance, as we shared last week, is $1 million. The total proposed budget is $1,115,107,225, and that includes both CRSA and ARP. Just reiterating alignment to the academic plan. Dr. Black has spoken of this often during ESA and other presentations, but we've made significant and continue to progress as far as instructional materials and providing updates. We have adoption of K-8 instructional resources. We are dedicated to increasing our assessment resources and allocating resources to address school accountability for schools that are comprehensive support, targeted support, as well as in receivership. We continued the expansion of special area teachers, increasing parent engagement efforts through restructuring, expanding bilingual programming, and identifying staffing and resources to ensure the documentation that's required for both students with disabilities and our English language learners. Specific alignment to the fiscal plan includes upgrading the district's financial system, and we've had many updates relative to that, upgrading the district's special education management system, maximizing Medicaid reimbursement, and the reconciliation of charter school tuition. Instructional highlights, and I'll just speak to just a few. Again, we continue to have resource allocation to improve accountability with our schools, again, that are CSI, TSI, or in receivership. Continue to ensure that different stakeholders within the district have professional development. We have science curriculum that will be moving forward, and very excited about the expansion of summer school programming. Under students with disabilities and English language learners, we have additional staffing to ensure that we meet our mandates, additional tutoring and related services, professional development as well as sensory kits to create calming centers. As far as social, emotional wellness and health, if you'll go to that slide, please, and thank you. Additional social workers and counselors, increased capacity for the ROC Restorative. The next slide, please. ROC Restorative, school health services, Leader in Me framework, therapeutic crisis intervention or TCI, social emotional learning, professional development, responsive school spaces, and culturally relevant curriculum. And then just finally, we had a robust conversation last time relative to school food service upgrades, and it involved the following: certainly having more salad bars in all schools that we're able to, upgrades to the core district monthly menu to provide more variety as far as what our scholars are eating in grades K through 12, going beyond the typical fruit options that we have for our scholars, and then additional additions to our high school repertoire as far as food service is concerned. Again, we are thankful to the board for their just hanging with us, and we appreciate their thoughtful questions through the deliberation process. We've already started the process of looking at what the budget process and making some recommendations for 23-24, and we look forward to working with the board beginning in July to make sure that our process is transparent, that the budget book is easily maneuverable for all our stakeholders, and that we have a meaningful process for our board to help them make meaningful decisions for the district. That is my presentation, President Elliott and Vice President LeBron and Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I'm going to ask if there are any questions of the superintendent's presentation. All right, hearing none, we will go through our resolutions. I want to...
President Elliott, the final statements from each commissioner on the budget.
Okay, I'm going to get to that. What I wanted to do is to, if it's okay with the commissioners, is for us to vote on Resolution 585, unless that is so tied to the budget that we can't leave the budget, separate those resolutions, and then once the final comments are made on the budget, then we vote just on the budget. Is that okay? Is that, all right? Okay?
Madam President, I
Sure.
don't see 585.
Yes.
Well, actually, first of all,
Good evening,
both
Commissioners.
resolutions are listed as 5.
President Elliott,
Yes.
the administration would like to withdraw the resolution that is on board docs and submit 2 resolutions in its place. I believe that the resolution to which you are referring is one of the 2 that we would like to submit and separate the 1 resolution.
So there's a 585 for the budget adoption, 584 for the budget adoption, and a 585 for school closure and relocation. So which one is being withdrawn?
I will clarify. So 584 is the resolution that is on the public access at the current time. It sounds like the administration is asking to withdraw 584 so that they can split it into 2. So it would be 585 and resolution 586. If you refresh, you'll see that it's 586, not 585.
So presently, it's on board docs as 1 resolution. We would like to withdraw that 1 resolution and submit them as 2.
I'm refreshing, but it's not.
It's still showing as, oh, I see now we have 584, 585, and 586.
So Marisol, which one is the administration withdrawing? I'm
We are
looking at
withdrawing 584. And we are introducing 585 and 586.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So can I get a motion for Resolution 585? Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments related to Resolution 585? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, it carries 6-1.
Well,
with-
no, hold on, I'm trying to look at 5. So that's a nay for me as well.
Can't be 6
I
votes,
was
there's only
opening.
6 of them.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. So,
I'm bringing up the online voting, so 585
Okay, I'm trying to get.
is the resolution for budget adoption. It was motioned by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Right now,
It's not for budget adoption, it's for school closures and relocation. That's the one we're voting on.
yeah, 585.
just, if you guys could just refresh. Board Docs has been having some issue
Okay.
today. I'm sorry. There's been a few things that we've noticed that's been going on, so please refresh for me.
That's not for me.
Are we waiting on the electronic vote? Because I'm not getting anything.
Does everyone see the correct resolution? 585
Yes.
is the resolution for budget adoption.
But that's not the motion that we had, so I'm
So you
asking
want to
for-
go to 586 first then?
No?
My 585 says school closure and relocation.
Right,
Oh,
so does mine.
but then I refreshed
Once you
the page.
refresh, it'll
If-
say
if you-
585
if you-
budget adoption, and then 586 as the school closure and relocation, so we probably need to make some changes.
Yes.
So Adrian, how do we withdraw that then? Because we just motioned, second, and voted.
Well,
With the jar.
our electronic vote wasn't
I can,
voted, so.
yeah, I'll wait for it.
So let me can we withdraw the motion?
Yes, you can make a motion to withdraw or modify the motion. So the board's intent was to vote on, or to discuss and
School
vote on which
closure
motion?
and relocation.
Okay, so,
that-
and that is listed on my screen as 586.
On mine is 585.
They just refresh, you have to refresh it again. It's board docs is having issues, Adrian.
Okay.
Okay, so on mine it's listed as 586. And the motion was for, what was the motion for 585 or 586?
We said 585.
Okay.
The intent of the motion was 586.
Yeah, so
We said
now,
585, yeah.
so do we need to withdraw that motion because it was resolution 585 is what I said?
So motion to
Yeah,
withdraw.
Motion.
Hold
yeah.
on a minute, hold on a minute.
Yeah, motion, just make a motion to withdraw, and then you can revote. And then you can vote on the motion to withdraw, and then you can revote on the appropriate motion.
All right, can I get a motion to withdraw resolution 585?
Motion to withdraw.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So, can I get a motion for resolution 586, which is the school closure and relocation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that motion, at this point,
The online voting is open.
okay.
Kavya, can you
Could you
vote
do
for me
mine
online?
manually?
Because I'm on my phone.
You got me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm having issues over here. And I refreshed.
So the motion passes 4-2 with one, with Vice President LeBron, no, and Commissioner Simmons, no, and Commissioner Patterson absent.
Whoops. You want to hold that vote open a little longer? Commissioner Patterson just voted on,
But is that how that works?
The
Can we get
closure.
some clarity on that? Because if the vote for me is closed, we already passed it. Can I get some clarity, Adrian?
Well, it passes, so,
I think the voting is closed.
Yep.
He wasn't here to deliberate, so I think the vote is closed and it passes.
All right, thank you.
yep, thank you. So, can I get a motion for resolution 585? And once we get the motion and second, I'll open up for comments, starting from Commissioner Adams. So is there a motion to approve the budget, Resolution 585?
Could you start somewhere else? I'm really still trying to
Okay.
get on mine here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Board
But is there a
docs.
motion?
Motion.
Is there a second? Second. Any questions or comments? We'll start down. Commissioner Powell, can we start with you since Commissioner Patterson just came in to get his thoughts?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Actually, I have questions and relative to the presentation, and you zipped right past it.
Okay.
So, as folks probably know, the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Rosa, asked us to consider 3 additional questions besides the usual. One is ensure the proposed budget remains balanced in terms of projected revenues and expenditures. Number 2, align with academic improvement fiscal plans. And number 3, consistent with any amendments with that the Commissioner has directed. So, Madam Superintendent, your presentation, I assume, is asserting that this budget is aligned with the academic and improvement and fiscal plans. There being so many points on both that one wouldn't necessarily be able to say that 100% it is, but perhaps Dr. Jallo, who has had as much time as all of us and more access than most to what the Commissioner's expectations are, can you make similar assurances that this budget will provide for the fiscal improvement plan and the academic improvement plan?
Good evening, everyone. As stated earlier, I have concerns about the budget, and I continue to have concerns about the budget as it aligns to academics. You can't hear me? It's not on? The light is on. Can you hear me now? Sorry. So as I stated before, there have been major improvements to the budget that I first saw back in March, April. And I want to acknowledge that the district has done a lot of work to make sure that the budget is aligned to the fiscal and academic plan. But to sit here and say that I'm fully satisfied, I don't think anybody is fully satisfied with the alignment of this budget to academic and financial plan. So does it meet the minimum requirement? Yes, it does. Is it what I'd like to see? No, it's not.
Okay. My next question has to do with that third item. Be consistent with any amendments that the Commissioner has directed. Can you, Madam Superintendent, speak to that particular thing? Can you tell us a little bit about what those amendments might have been? Because we're not all necessarily privy to the fine points of what's been communicated.
Sure. So, sorry. Can you hear me? So on April 7th and April 8th, we sent correspondence to Commissioner Rosa and the New York State Department of Education, and I'm just scrolling because I want to get to those so I can speak to them, but it included things like double counting of substitutes, it including ensuring that we had no more than reliance of $10 million on appropriated fund balance. And I'm just going to the things, but we sent the correspondence to her to provide information to her relative to that. And if you give me just one more moment, I will get that to you. 4-7.
Was there a response?
There was a response, and we needed to provide, just give me 1 second, I'm sorry, one moment. Just trying to find it. So reduce the amount of appropriated fund balance, reduce the unfilled and frozen vacant positions. We needed to, and terminate the practice of double counting. And we provided, we substantiated our responses to that in the transmittal letter that we sent on the 8th of April to the commissioner. We did have a meeting on April 14th where we had an opportunity to have in-person engagement with deputy commissioner and assistant commissioners to make sure that they understood, and we clarified any outstanding questions that they had.
And was your impression that they were comfortable with their submission at that point?
I think they're, they want to make sure that we were able to clarify, but that we continue to follow through and make sure that that happens starting July 1 for the 22-23 school year.
Dr. Gianni, would you concur with that representation?
Before I speak to that, I thought there was another issue around TOSAs as well.
Thank you, yes,
Yeah, there
you're
was
right.
another amendment about a reduction in the number of TOSAs.
Yes, thank you.
So the number of
Teachers on assignment.
Teachers on
Oh,
assignment. Teachers on
Thank you,
special assignment.
Dr. Jallo, yes.
So at this point, what the state has shared with the administration is documentation to show how this is going to happen after the budget is, if and when the budget is approved. So it's one thing to say that you're going to stop double counting substitutes. It's another thing to say that you're going to reduce TOSAs. Now we're at a point where my colleagues in Albany want to see documentation and evidence of how this is going to happen. We feel that you're going to try to do it, but we want to see evidence that it's going to take place. Particularly concerned about the TOSAs, particularly concerned about the substitutes, because that has such a direct impact on your budget and your finances. There's been a lot of communication back and forth, and I think that the state feels that in good faith the district is going to try. But at this point, it's a matter of having evidence and documentation to show that you're going to do what you say you're going to do in this budget.
Okay. And my last question goes back to the first point. A strict construction of the sentence, ensure the proposed budget remains balanced in terms of projected revenues and expenditures. Using fund balance is not strictly speaking a revenue. And so if I were going to be hardcore about it, I'd say any use of fund balance would cause me to reject the budget. And I did consider that position. But what I just heard was that conversation between Dr. Rosa and her team at SED has accepted that $10 million fund balance as a kind of a ground level
Beginning.
condition of that whether it can or cannot be avoided is another question, but it's acceptable to the commissioner. That I guess better not be the hill I die on if it's okay with the commissioner. So those were my questions about the presentation. You don't want me to go into my closing position, do you?
Well, I was thinking that once we did, yeah, you can, because.
Do you want to make sure other people don't have questions first, or?
No, you could just go on and do that,
Okay.
and then we'll end it up.
All right, well, my last comment was part and parcel of my closing position, and that is, how seriously does one take the need for a balanced budget? And certainly reducing the use of fund balance from potential $36 million down to $10 million is a big step in the right direction. I'm still uncomfortable with it. But one of the truths about school board services, the more you know, the longer the on the other hand conversation can go. It would be like playing Monopoly. It'll go on forever, playing on the one hand and then on the other hand. My biggest question going into the budget season was about staffing ratios, and the response I got pointed to the fact that they were using a calculation as opposed to simply rolling over positions as they had been in the past, or as they were used in the previous year. And that, I think, is the correct way to budget if we can also show that those calculations are reliable at the end of the fiscal year. Did those calculations actually manifest themselves into the actual expenditures? And unfortunately, I didn't ask the right question for that. I don't know what the historical trends are with that, and I'm not comfortable that we have always kind of stayed within our budget on staffing ratios. But my reason for asking that question had to do with whether we were in fact in a systemic deficit, a structural deficit is the phrase I'm looking for, position relative to our revenues from the state. And the fact that we aren't yet fully formula aid funded this year, I guess I have to take into account that until we are fully funded according to established metrics of what our district should be getting, yeah, we can expect to be in a structural deficit and have to struggle through that until the state fully fulfills its contract for excellence from 2007. So I am cautiously going to support this budget. And so that concludes, and I'll add, there have been a lot of dollars put into places that the public has declared a strong interest in, the social workers, counselors, and psychologists, all of which are demonstrably needed in our post-pandemic world, and there's pandemic money to spend on it. So I don't have any other reservations about this budget that would keep me up at night, and I will be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Patterson, can we go to you next?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. First of all, to the public, I'd like to apologize for being late. There was an accident on I-490 westbound at the exit right here for South Plymouth. So that can, obviously that's documented through 911 if anyone wants to look into that, but I sincerely apologize for being late. I just have something to read into the record. So before I move forward with my vote on this budget, I would like to put my concerns on the record tonight. First, due to the months of delay on passing a school budget, there are understandable concerns for the children, parents, students, administrators, and community at large, teachers, etc. Second, because continued delay will cause more deleterious outcomes, is there agreement, this is to the superintendent, sorry, that if this budget passes or if we allow it to move forward with the vote, that the board will be allowed to make final decisions relative to the budget and or make adjustments based on constant monitoring of the budget. So in essence, we the board reserve the right to make adjustments to this budget.
Are you asking?
Yes.
We would have to do it through budget amendments, and then it would have to have a majority. And as long as we, we have to make sure that we're not having going over the reliance of 10 million fund balance, those types of things.
Okay. All right, based on that, I'm going to vote for the budget. You're asking for my vote?
Any other comments you want to make?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams, can we go to you now?
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, you can go to me. For me, it was the food. I've been talking about my kids and the other kids that I know in the district. They've been talking about the food for 2 years, 3 years now. And so that's what really influenced my vote. But my vote comes with a caveat. I'm expecting and hoping that some amendments are in the very near future. Example being more compensation to the SSOs, possibly even more funding for food service. Also, I would like us to take another look at the funding that we're going to spend on. It's a lot of extra funding that we intend to spend on summer school. And the fact is, historically, summer school has been very lowly attended. It's not been well attended. And so for us to be increasing a lot of funds there, I would just like us to at least put that back on the table. That's the caveat that my yes vote is going to come with. There's so much other stuff going on that I need to move beyond this. So my vote is yes, and I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Malloy?
You know, instead of focusing on creating an actual infrastructure that will allow us to foster the type of programming that our students really need, I feel like you've bolstered the age-old RTA versus superintendent argument the night before a budget vote. Yogi Berra once said it's deja vu all over again. And a year later, we have just experienced possibly the most disorganized and non-transparent budget process in the history of this district. And you choose to write an open letter to our teachers and post it on our district's website. Are you serious? And we have our board president essentially saying that we should vote yes now and work out the details later, and I reject this. And our families and students should reject this type of lack of preparedness as well. As a teacher, if I showed up to teach my students without being prepared when the school year started, I would be held accountable by my administrators, my teacher peers, and by my students. As the sole no vote on last year's budget, I was concerned at the lack of clarity and transparency. It turns out that there were miscalculations made, and our finance chair has fortunately and transparently reminded us of this throughout this year's budget deliberations. The seeming lack of preparedness and yesterday's deflection not only shows a lack of leadership as stewards of this district, but you are setting up all of our employees for failure next year. You and our board president are essentially asking us to let you give our employees you're asking to give our employees the directives they need to start the 22-23 school year by the end of summer. And this is not how to run a school district. You do realize that teachers and building principals, and we spend much of our summers preparing for the coming year. We engage in professional development to implement the directives you give. And we have a job to pass a balanced budget as a board. That is our duty as New York State School Board members. But stop deflecting. Stop denigrating our teachers. All teachers should be held accountable. Oh yes, absolutely. And they will be by this board, our community, and our teacher peers. I would like to reiterate my support of every employee in this district, not just teachers. People who are actually working with our students instead of making excuses. Give us an actual budget, not 4 separate binders and inserts that require constant cross-checking across documents. We've had an entire school year to figure this out. I do want to acknowledge some bright spots in these documents, though. I won't call it a budget. But I do commend our Operations and Facilities Department for producing specifics on increases to our food service. Our students deserve this. This was in direct response to commissioner requests and advocacy by community members who have been fighting for this for far longer than I've been on the board. Our students also deserve specifics about how we are investing in their social emotional learning and their academic needs, with the type of specificity that unfortunately has not been provided in this budget. When I raised the question of how this year's budget addressed the board goal of equity across the district, you asked me to define equity for you. And this leads me to believe that equity wasn't at the forefront of our budgeting goals. It feels like the right hand isn't talking with the left hand on this budget. And what's especially disappointing is that our many mid-level administrators have clearly been working hard on these matters. And I respectfully commend all of our administration, everyone who has contributed to this budget, despite the lack of communication that has been coming from the top. What are the specific progressive actions we will take for the long-range fiscal success of this district? How will we specifically move next year to help begin the process of addressing our declining enrollment? Asking us the day before the vote if there are any additional questions about the budget, right after you smear our employees on the internet, is beyond comprehension. We all, your board, your employees, and especially our families and students, deserve clarity and respect. And it seems to me there are behind-the-scenes distractions taking us away from the charge of the budgeting process. So I'm sorry, but it is a no vote for me.
Thank you, President Elliott. I don't have a prepared statement, but I'm going to just try to speak from the heart. And one thing that came out, and not to say that no one else is speaking from the heart, but I'm just going to come freestyle with this. One thing Dr. Jallo mentioned tonight was the how, and that's important to me. So I want to start with our children deserve the best. They don't deserve it's okay. They don't deserve we're going to do the minimal to balance things out. We need to make sure that our children get everything they deserve. And when I looked at this budget, when I went through this budget experience, I cannot emphatically say that this is an aligned, fiscally or academically sound budget. Our children, our community, they're not chess pieces to be played with. And we cannot afford to speak language that sounds good in nature. We have to show it with our actions. And so when your actions are demonstrated by presenting really well thought out pieces, and I found so much to be evasive, convoluted, and just confusing during this time. And that doesn't sound like that's our best effort. When we think about a district like the Rochester City School District, historically, the budget has been an issue, historically. So I cannot come in as a new commissioner and responsibly sit here and pass something because it sounds like a good idea and we want to get this over with. I want to get it over with as well, but I cannot consciously do that if I don't feel that it aligns perfectly or the way that it should. So obviously, you can garner where I'm going with this. This is a no for me, and we have to do better by our students. Finally, we also need to make sure that we're setting our educators up for success. We cannot expect educators to come into a school community that's not equipped to support the students the way they need. So the community has spoken, and I, as a commissioner, have spoken. I'm saying no. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge Vice President LeBron during this particular time. Again, as a new commissioner, this thing was all over the place. And one thing I watched her do throughout this process, I watched people, and I watched her challenge things. I watched her bring things to light. I watched her really give this budget the energy that it deserved. And I'm not sure what's happened in the past, but I just wanted to commend you for the hard work. President Elliott communicating with us and letting us know what was going on and keeping us in the light. So I don't even know if my words made sense, but hopefully you heard me say no. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do want to start out by actually thanking a few people first. I do want to thank my parent rep. We do have parent reps on the board. Mine happens to be Rebecca Harrington, and she's here tonight, and I just want to say thank you to her. I do want to also acknowledge and thank the finance team and the accounting team and the auditing team, staff members. And there's too many that I don't want to miss anyone, but as a team, I just want to acknowledge them and thank them as well. So as the communications team, and lots of teams work on this budget, but one thing I will say, these are the folks that are kind of doing the nitty-gritty behind the scenes, and do put a lot of effort into getting us here. But they can only do so much, right? And so I spent a number of weeks meeting early mornings, late nights, myself, President Elliott, and different team members, including the administration. So I feel like I know firsthand, up close and personal more than my colleagues, besides President Elliott, all of the issues that plague this budget, from the fact that departments did not have their budgets up to like chiefs and to deputies and deputies into the finance, and they were not able to plug. And that literally started and snowballed into more issues that we encountered. And so we ended up with a number of issues on actual numbers, whether there's accuracy in the numbers, whether they were correct, lots of amendments, lots of budget, calendar changes, and something that Dr. Jallo mentioned is the state wants evidence. I have not been able to satisfactorily see any evidence that this budget is technically balanced. I hear it, that they're saying it's balanced, and I also personally have to say I don't appreciate the presentation tonight. It felt like gaslighting, because I cannot open the budget and see where we actually do have more social workers and counselors. I know that there are some listed in ARP, but that also does not mean that that's an actual body in a school to actually provide a service to a student. So I did not appreciate that presentation tonight. And so I just want to be clear that obviously I'm going to be voting no. I have been no from the very beginning, just primarily having seen everything that I mentioned. But I would be remiss to also not add that I truly do believe that our budget, any school board budget, should be easily readable and digestible to anybody. You should not need or require an accounting background, a finance background, a degree to be able to open the budget and see what's going on in the budget and see what we're paying for and what is there. And while we want to tout the lunch services piece, I actually do not feel necessarily grateful. I feel like that should have been a given already for families. Like, we should not even have to fight so hard to have food services get a proper funding, let alone social emotional services get proper funding. So obviously it's a no for me. This notion of amending the budget, I just want to be clear. I think that in itself is a falsehood if you believe that we're going to be able to amend the budget to how the board wants to see it after tonight's vote. That's actually not how it's not going to work that easily, and there's still factors and consequences to doing that. So I will be voting no, and I'm not going to fault my colleagues for their vote, but what I will say that at some point this district is going to have to break the status quo and figure out that if we have a budget from an administration that doesn't meet the needs of our community and our students and our schools, that we just simply don't pass it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. Let me first just start off, as Commissioner Simmons did, by thanking the Vice President. She has been beyond diligent on this budget and the budget process. She's been strong. She's been on point. And I just want to thank her for the work that she's done in leading us in this budget process. So thank you, Vice President. This is difficult. It is very difficult. You see, we've got 3 no's and 3 in favor of the budget. And you heard from Dr. Jallo, who said that, you know, she's not satisfied with it, but it's come a long ways from where we started off at. And I want to make sure that the superintendent and her staff take what we're saying seriously, and it seems as if the staff has not taken it seriously. And you can tell it by the way the vote is at the current time. You know, we got to look at, and to the point around, you know, the evidence of what we're doing. You know, do we have more social workers and psychologists in our buildings? Where's the evidence of that? What are we going to do about reducing the number of students who are leaving our district, going to charter schools, and we're having to pay out $106 million in charter school payment? What about the other resources that are also connected to that, which makes the $106 million of charter schools, that goes up because in that is not transportation costs and other costs around food and what have you. And then, how do we really operationalize and adjust this budget the way in which we the board wants to have it adjusted so that we can meet the needs of our students. It's almost as if it was just put together, but then now it's after, it's the afterthoughts of how we're going to make this work. And so I'm not sure what else to do but pass this budget. What happens if we don't pass it? And we did get some advice from our council around this, but we can't do our work. And so while this is not a good budget, and while the state monitor has said is far better, I feel compelled to support the budget. And so my vote will be yes. But it is yes only because we've got to pass it. I don't know what else to do. We've got to pass the budget. This district has to be about the business of educating our kids. And so there's no other choice but for me to give my vote yes. But I'm hoping that in the summer, as we begin planning for fiscal year 23-24, that budget is going to look a whole lot different than what this budget is looking at now. And we can support it, we can explain, and we have evidence of the budget that we're going to pass. So with that, my vote is yes. And
I'm going to just for formality's sake, I know everyone did their statements. If you can just do a roll call, starting with Commissioner Adams, and also the online voting is open. Commissioner
Adams?
Yes.
Commissioner Malloy?
No.
Commissioner Simmons?
Nay.
Vice President LeBron?
Nay.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Powell?
Yes.
And my vote is yes.
The vote is 4-3, with noes from Vice President LeBron, Commissioner Malloy, and Commissioner Simmons.
And just for the record, would you all spell my name correctly on this resolution? You all are always leaving off my T's. It's E-L-L-I-O-T-T, so whoever put this together?
Did you do online?
Yes, there was yes.
Mine is not up, Callia. No. I'm not able to vote online.
I closed it because it was running, yeah.
All right, okay. So that budget passes 4-3. And I'd like to get a motion to go into executive session to receive the advice of General Counsel. Can I get a motion?
So second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night.